Hello everyone, my name is Dawn Winters and you are watching the Writing for Doctoral Studies series. This video introduces you to the prospectus. So perhaps you're watching this video pretty early on in your career and you're thinking, I'm not sure what the prospectus is, you've never written a research prospectus. WKU has a really great form that can walk you through the process, but this video is designed to kind of pre-introduce it to you. So really, a prospectus is the first time you're putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard about your research. And what it is and what you should really approach it as is a commercial. You're selling this idea, you're selling your research to your chair. And by the way, you should already have a chair if you're working on your prospectus. You may not have committee members, but you at least have a chair, but you should be on your way to having a full committee by the time you work on your prospectus. But you are selling this idea to them as viable research. And what it includes is a discussion of the research questions, a rationale for the study, support, and procedures. And I've got this girl on this slide down here in the corner, and this is probably what you look like at the time that you're thinking, all right, it's really time to nail down my topic and to really go with something. And that can be a really big process and it can be really frustrating. So this video is not a panacea. It's not going to solve all your prospectus problems, but it will walk you through what you need to do for each portion. So the form that I just referred to is EDD Form 3, and it can be found on the Program Progression and Forms page of the EDD website at WKU. And this document is, you can write your prospectus right into this document, or you can write it separately and attach this document. Please talk to your chair about what he or she would prefer you to do. You may even talk to Dr. Dorman about what is required for this process. But here's the form that you're going to want to look at. This is not the complete form, and it should not be indicative of how much you should be writing. So your general research questions should not just fit into that one box. So your proposed title. Titles are really tricky for writers, and it can be tricky for you to really encompass your research into a single line, a phrase, maybe even a brief sentence that really composes your title. It should be really engaging. It should be descriptive. So you should not just, if you are studying, let's say you're studying students who transfer after their sophomore year into the STEM fields and their success or something like that. You shouldn't just say success of transfer students. Any way that you're narrowing down your research and making your research more specific should go in your title. So if you're only looking at females, then the word female should go in your title. If you're looking at students of Hispanic descent, and no other descent, then you should say Hispanic students or students of Hispanic descent. So being more specific in your title really matters and can really help people find your research. And remember, this is only a draft. And there are going to be opportunities for you to change or alter your title, and this is your first opportunity to get feedback. And right here I've included an example of retention of Hispanic students. And I don't say, I say that's a bad student or a bad title. I mean, it's not the worst title ever, but I guess the worst title ever might just be retention. But a better title might be retaining male students of Hispanic descent in STEM fields. So that gives your readers a little bit more of a guide as to what they can expect. Your research questions should also be specific, and there are entire book chapters dedicated to writing good research questions. So this is just some advice, and really what I want to say before I go into this is you and your chair should really work together to form research questions together. It should not be something that you're doing alone. Maybe you're working on the first draft of your questions. What I found worked best for me was I just wrote down what I wanted to know. And this is really a good place to start, even if your questions are written in plain English, even if your questions aren't as specific enough as you would want them to be. You're at least starting off with what you want to know, and you can really hone them down and really carve them into the research questions that you want them to be. You know, make sure they're connected to the purpose of the study and they're appropriate for the type of research. So you're thinking about your methodology already in your research questions. So a not so great research questions are, why do Hispanic males drop out? A better one, and again, this question could even be carved and honed to make it even better, more specific research question, was what factors lead to the attrition of male students of Hispanic descent? So I'm getting a little bit more specific, and I'm mentioning factors, which gives readers and you a clue as to what type of research you're going to continue on with. And those of you who are working in the quantitative fields or working in the experimental fields, you really only need a hypothesis when you're doing experimental or quasi-experimental work. And so if you're doing a qualitative exploration study, if you're doing grounded theory, there's really no hypothesis that you're proving or disproving. So only work with hypotheses if you're working with the kind of research where you can prove or disprove an idea. Okay, so the rationale for the studies. This is the why you're doing the study, and this is a really exciting time for you. This is you see a need, and you want to show that there's this hole, there's this gap in the research that you want to identify, that you want to fill with your study. So you're really establishing a precedence. This is the moment that you should be feeling like a real researcher, right? That you've read all these studies on, you know, girls in the STEM fields or females in the STEM fields and how we don't have enough, but you're really missing out on how to serve a specific group of males in STEM field, and you really can't find a lot of literature on Hispanic males in STEM field, and you know that there's not a lot of Hispanic males, or there's not this abundance of males of Hispanic descent in the STEM fields. So you've seen this already, and here's your time to really shine and show that there's a precedence for your study. I really recommend focusing on the sample. So how is this population important to the research? It's not just the ideas that are important, there's also people behind this that we can either serve or improve or do something with. And really, what you're going to want to think of over and over again when you're writing this section, and you'll have to write it in your chapter 1. If you watch my preparing for the dissertation, you're going to know that chapter 1 contains a lot of the same things that a prospectus contains. But this is the why, or to what end. So if someone asks you, why are you writing your dissertation, or why are you doing this research, you should be able to spout off this rationale pretty quickly. So your support for this study, this is a miniature lit review. And you're going to try in a brief amount of time to target all the areas of research that are covered in your research questions or in your primary thesis. So for the one that we've been discussing throughout this presentation, retention, male students, students of Hispanic descent, students in STEM fields. Most people are probably thinking at this point, well, how long is my prospectus going to be? I like to say, don't focus on the number of pages. Don't consider the number of pages. Consider the number of ideas that you want to explain. So this miniature lit review is enough to show that there's a precedence. It's enough to show that you have a good theoretical and research base to go off of, and you have a lot of models to go off of. So don't think I've got to get to 20 pages, or my lit review really has to be only 5 pages. If you really want to think page numbers and you're really caught up on how long or how short this needs to be, your chair is a good resource and can give you some guidelines on what's needed for this part. But really, you're focusing on ideas. If it ends up being a little bit too long, you're always going to be able to drop that research into your lit review in your dissertation, and you'll be fine. Okay, so the procedures part, this is where you're putting pen to paper as far as your methodology is concerned. So are you doing qualitative or quantitative research? That's really basic. If depending on which one, what's your methodological designs? And here you're going to really want to include subparts of your design. So not only are you doing qualitative research you're exploring the ethnography of something, and you're going to do it through interviews or through focus groups or through a combination of interviews and observations. So you're really breaking it down a little bit more here. And if you don't have those subparts all worked out, here's your opportunity to start a discussion with your chair about the direction you want to go. It also includes your development of instruments. For my Prospectus, I had an appendix that had the interview schedule. If you already have your survey, your interview schedule, any kind of instrument that you've designed or that you're borrowing or that you're using, here's your chance to put it in there and get it in there early and get that decided early. You're also going to look at the analysis protocols. So once the data have been collected, how are you going to analyze it? And I have protocol or protocols in parentheses because you may be analyzing it in multiple ways, or you may just have a singular way that you're going to analyze. You're also going to explore some ethical concerns. So if you already right off the bat, you are thinking about face-to-face interviews, and will the interviewees feel intimidated, or will they feel uncomfortable, or you're already thinking about those questions connected to IRB and those questions connected to human research. So it's a really good question to consider. And there I also have the optional appendix as the instrument. Your references, you're going to want to cite all those things that you cited in the APA, or I'm sorry, in your lit review. You'll have an APA references page. Only cite what's included in the prospectus. So at this point, you may have done extensive research, or you've combined all the research. You kind of thought ahead, and in your other classes, you really tried to find articles that are connected to your dissertation topic. So you've got this great compendium of research that you can put all in there, but if you don't cite it in your prospectus, please don't include it in your references page. What I suggest is keeping a separate log of resources, a separate file of resources, like, hey, I will use these, I didn't include it in my prospectus. This should be done right around the time of the comprehensive exam. And you should be able to create a conversation amongst yourself, your chair, the committee members about where to go from here. This gives guidance for the IRB process, and it really creates the foundation for Chapter 1. So this is a really important process. And this is, the first conversation, or maybe the first of many conversations that you're going to have with your chair about working out kinks and really making sure that your research is sound. So as usual, if you need help with your writing, if you have questions about this process, the Writing Center is a great tool that you can use, at least with help with the basic writing, the APA citations, and maybe some of your rhetorical skills that you need to sharpen up. They've got locations in Glasgow and on WKU's campus. They also have online tutoring available. So thank you very much for listening.